Welcome to the Trend Reddit channel. This is where we share interesting, funny, and emotional stories about family life together. This simple habit became an essential part of his life. But one morning, when he arrived, everything suddenly changed. He saw a strange man sitting on the bench, and the man's gaze held secrets he had never imagined. What will happen next? Let's explore together. Let's laugh, reflect, and sometimes shed a tear with these meaningful stories. If you love heartfelt and relatable tales, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any of our videos. Be sure to click the notification bell for the latest episodes of our stories. Thank you for your support and for being with Trend Reddit. Oliver was no ordinary 8-year-old boy. While most of his peers busied themselves with sports and games, Oliver was captivated by the worlds found within the pages of his books. His petite frame contrasted with his imagination, which soared beyond the confines of his small town. With bright blue eyes that sparkled behind thick glasses, he seemed to look at the world differently, always in a hurry, as if racing toward the next adventure in his fantasy realm. At home, however, life was far from magical. Oliver's parents fought frequently, their arguments echoing through the hallways and filling the air with tension. The turmoil left him feeling lost and alone, prompting him to seek refuge in the outdoors. His favorite spot became a large oak tree in the park, where he would nestle against the trunk with a book in hand. Here, he found solace, escaping into tales of brave heroes and steadfast loyalty, leaving behind the chaos of his home life. This tree was not just a physical escape, it was a portal to countless adventures. Each afternoon, he would lose himself in stories of distant lands, mystical creatures, and courageous quests. The characters he encountered became his friends, providing companionship in the face of his solitude. Oliver's imagination flourished as he delved deeper into these worlds, crafting vivid scenarios in his mind where he was the hero overcoming all odds. However, the reality of his situation was ever present. The sound of raised voices at home constantly pulled him back from his fantasies. Arguments about money, responsibilities, and misunderstandings filled the air, leaving little room for peace. Often, Oliver would retreat to his favorite tree, hoping that the branches would shield him from the emotional storms brewing at home. Here, he could pretend that life was simple, that adventure awaited just beyond the pages of his books. It was during one of these escapes that he first noticed Mr. Thompson. The old man sat on a weathered bench, a loyal dog named Buddy at his side. His beard was unkempt, and his clothes were tattered, but there was a kindness in his eyes that drew Oliver in. Each day, Oliver would leave an apple on the bench, a small offering that sparked a silent connection between the boy and the man. This simple act of kindness made Oliver feel as though he was contributing something meaningful to the world around him. Oliver admired how Mr. Thompson treated Buddy, with gentle touches and soft words. The bond between them was evident, a testament to the strength of companionship. This connection resonated with Oliver, who often felt lonely amidst the chaos of his family life. He began to understand the profound impact of friendship, even in the simplest of gestures. The act of leaving apples soon became a cherished ritual for Oliver. He looked forward to the moment each day when he could place his offering on the bench, imagining the joy it would bring to Mr. Thompson and Buddy. In his mind, he envisioned the old man's grateful smile as he picked up the fruit, a small beacon of hope amidst his struggles. This ritual provided Oliver with a sense of purpose, a way to contribute to someone else's happiness while escaping his own reality. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Oliver and Mr. Thompson deepened without words. He observed the man's quiet resilience, the way he navigated life with dignity despite his circumstances. Oliver found inspiration in Mr. Thompson's presence, a reminder that even in difficult times, kindness and loyalty could thrive. The oak tree remained a constant in Oliver's life, its branches providing shade and comfort as he read stories of adventure. The park transformed into a sanctuary where he could escape, reflect, and dream. Each visit solidified his belief in the power of friendship and compassion, even when faced with challenges. One fateful day, everything shifted when a man dressed in a sharp suit entered the park, flanked by imposing bodyguards. The man's presence sent a wave of anxiety through Oliver. He wondered what this stranger's intentions were and whether Mr. Thompson was in danger. His heart raced as he crouched behind a tree, eyes wide as he tried to make sense of the scene unfolding before him. Through whispers exchanged between other parkgoers, Oliver learned that the man was named Mr. Harris. The conversations hinted at a troubled history involving Mr. Thompson, who was revealed to be Mr. Harris's estranged father. The revelation sent chills down his spine. The kind old man he had grown to admire was linked to a world of family turmoil that Oliver had only ever read about in books. Mr. Harris was desperate to reconnect with his father, but the weight of their past loomed heavy over them both. Feeling the gravity of the situation, Oliver realized he stood at a crossroads. He had watched Mr. Thompson and Buddy grow accustomed to their routine, and now the arrival of Mr. Harris threatened to disrupt their fragile peace. With this realization came a stirring sense of purpose. Perhaps he could be the catalyst for change, a way to bridge the gap between the two men. If he could help Mr. Harris reach out to his father, maybe he could bring a little more light into their lives. Oliver's heart raced with possibilities. The thought of reuniting a family sparked a fire within him, igniting a determination that mirrored the heroes of his beloved stories. With each visit to the park, he pondered how he could facilitate this reunion, convinced that even the smallest actions could lead to meaningful change. The quiet bond he had formed with Mr. Thompson now felt like a foundation for something greater, a chance to weave together the threads of kindness, compassion, and hope into a narrative that transcended his own struggles. Oliver's daily routine in the park took on a new significance when he began to leave apples on the bench for Mr. Thompson. Each morning, after he tucked his favorite book under his arm, he would make his way to the park, a small red apple in hand. It was a simple gesture, yet it created a spark of connection between the boy and the old man. With every apple he placed on the bench, Oliver felt a sense of warmth, as if he were sharing a secret with Mr. Thompson. As the days passed, Oliver observed Mr. Thompson closely. The old man would often sit with Buddy, his dog, resting his weathered hands on the animal's back, their bond apparent in the way they interacted. Oliver admired the gentle way Mr. Thompson treated his dog, always making sure Buddy had enough to eat and offering words of affection. In the simplicity of their companionship, Oliver found a model of loyalty and kindness, something he yearned for amid the chaos of his own life. The apples quickly became a routine for both Oliver and Mr. Thompson. Each day, Oliver would place the apple on the bench before settling down under his oak tree with a book. He would glance up occasionally, hoping to catch a glimpse of Mr. Thompson's smile as he picked up the fruit. Though they had never spoken, Oliver felt a silent understanding between them, a shared appreciation for the little things in life. However, as Oliver continued this ritual, he couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was brewing beneath the surface. The park, once a refuge for Oliver, began to feel charged with unspoken stories. He would sit with his book, but his mind would wander to thoughts of Mr. Thompson's life. What had led him to this bench? What stories did he hold in those gentle, tired eyes? One crisp afternoon, while Oliver was lost in a fantasy world of knights and dragons, he noticed a figure in a sharp suit entering the park. The man was tall and confident, flanked by two imposing bodyguards who seemed to cast long shadows over the lively atmosphere. Oliver's heart began to race. The sight of the suited stranger felt like an intrusion into the peaceful haven he had come to cherish. He watched with growing anxiety, wondering what this man's intentions might be and how it might affect Mr. Thompson. As the stranger approached the bench where Mr. Thompson sat with Buddy, Oliver felt a surge of protectiveness. He quietly set down his book, shifting his position to get a better view. The man's demeanor was serious, and Oliver could see that Mr. Thompson looked taken aback, his expression a mix of confusion and apprehension. The bodyguards loomed behind, their presence intimidating, and Oliver's heart pounded in his chest as he contemplated the potential confrontation. Moments stretched into what felt like an eternity as Oliver observed the interaction. The stranger leaned in, speaking to Mr. Thompson in low, urgent tones. Oliver strained to hear, but the words were muffled by the distance. He felt an overwhelming urge to intervene, to shield Mr. Thompson from whatever storm was brewing. The unease settled deep within him, igniting a determination to protect the old man who had become a silent part of his life. Just as Oliver was about to make a move, he overheard snippets of their conversation. The man introduced himself as Mr. Harris, and Oliver's ears perked up. It was then he learned that Mr. Harris was actually Mr. Thompson's estranged son. The revelation sent a shiver down Oliver's spine. This was more than just an encounter between a stranger and a homeless man. It was a reunion charged with unresolved emotions and history. Oliver felt a deepening sense of concern as he continued to eavesdrop. Mr. Harris expressed regret over their broken relationship, the words laced with pain and longing. Oliver couldn't help but feel sympathy for Mr. Harris, who seemed desperate to reconnect with the father he had lost. Yet, his protective instincts for Mr. Thompson battled against that sympathy. Would Mr. Harris bring more trouble than healing? The encounter escalated as Mr. Harris gestured towards his bodyguards, who stood nearby with their arms crossed, their imposing figures suggesting that they were ready to intervene if necessary. Mr. Thompson appeared uncomfortable, his eyes darting between the man and Buddy, who instinctively pressed against his leg. The tension was palpable, and Oliver felt an overwhelming urge to do something, to bridge the gap between father and son. Watching from his hidden spot, Oliver began to formulate a plan. He couldn't let this chance slip away. If Mr. Harris truly wanted to reconcile, he needed to understand the importance of approaching his father with care and compassion, devoid of intimidation. In that moment, Oliver realized he might have a role to play in this unfolding drama, one that could bring healing to both men. As Mr. Harris turned to leave, Oliver took a deep breath, weighing his options. He felt a newfound responsibility resting on his small shoulders. Perhaps he could facilitate a reunion, a chance for understanding to blossom between Mr. Harris and Mr. Thompson. He resolved to find a way to connect with both men, believing that even the smallest gestures of kindness could lead to profound changes. With his heart racing and determination swirling within him, Oliver knew that the path ahead would require courage. The unfolding story before him was more than just an encounter, it was an opportunity for connection, a chance to mend broken ties. As he gathered his thoughts, the weight of the moment settled into his core, filling him with a sense of purpose he had never known before. As the days passed, Oliver's connection with Mr. Thompson deepened through his small acts of kindness. Each time he returned to the park, he felt a mix of anticipation and excitement, eager to see if Mr. Thompson would be there with Buddy. The sight of the old man sitting on the bench, with Buddy lying contentedly at his feet, warmed Oliver's heart. Their unspoken bond grew stronger, and Oliver learned more about the joys of companionship and friendship simply by observing their interactions. Oliver admired the love and respect Mr. Thompson showed Buddy. The old man would often share scraps of food with his loyal companion, ensuring Buddy was well fed and cared for. In those moments, Oliver felt a longing for a similar connection, something pure and unwavering amidst the chaos of his own family life. He began to understand that companionship transcended words, manifesting in shared moments and gentle gestures. Watching Mr. Thompson and Buddy together was like witnessing a beautiful dance of loyalty and trust, and it inspired Oliver to reflect on the relationships in his own life. However, the park was not always a sanctuary. On one particular day, as Oliver arrived, he noticed Mr. Harris once again lurking in the background. The man was pacing near the entrance, his demeanor anxious and restless. Oliver's heart sank as he wondered if Mr. Harris would disrupt the peace that had settled over the park. He hesitated, unsure whether he should approach Mr. Thompson or remain hidden, watching from a distance. Just as Oliver was about to turn away, he saw Mr. Harris step forward, approaching Mr. Thompson with an intensity that made Oliver's heart race. The confrontation felt inevitable. Oliver held his breath, feeling the tension in the air. Mr. Thompson looked up, and for a moment, their eyes met. Oliver could sense a storm brewing, a clash of emotions ready to erupt. Would Mr. Harris be able to reach out to his father, or would he bring only turmoil? As Oliver watched, he noticed the way Mr. Thompson's expression shifted from surprise to cautious curiosity. It was clear that the old man had his reservations. Oliver could feel his own anxiety escalating. This was a pivotal moment, one that could shape the future of their relationship. Determined to help, Oliver decided that he could not remain a passive observer any longer. With his heart pounding in his chest, Oliver approached the bench where Mr. Thompson sat. The two men were deep in conversation, their voices low but filled with urgency. Oliver felt a surge of courage as he stepped closer, ready to intervene if necessary. He introduced himself, his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. "Hi, I'm Oliver. I often leave apples here for Mr. Thompson. If you find it interesting, please like it. If not, please comment number 1. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video." Mr. Harris turned to Oliver, surprise flickering across his face. "You're the boy who leaves food for my father?" he asked, a hint of appreciation in his tone. "Thank you for being kind to him." Mr. Thompson looked at Oliver with a mix of gratitude and confusion, trying to comprehend the situation. Oliver seized the moment, sensing that this was his chance to be the bridge between father and son. He looked at Mr. Harris and said, "Mr. Thompson loves Buddy, and they're a great team. I think you should try to get to know him better. Maybe you could come back tomorrow?" Mr. Harris's expression softened as he considered Oliver's words. The boy's sincerity seemed to resonate with him. "You're right," he replied slowly. "I have so much to say, but I haven't known how to approach him." The vulnerability in Mr. Harris's voice struck a chord with Oliver, and he felt a sense of hope blossoming. With each passing day, Oliver took it upon himself to encourage Mr. Harris to return to the park. He continued to leave apples on the bench, hoping that they would serve as a reminder of the connection he was trying to foster. In his conversations with Mr. Harris, Oliver learned more about the man's troubled past, his regrets, and his desire to reconnect with his father. The weight of their shared history weighed heavily on both of them, but Oliver felt a determination to help them find a way forward. On another visit, Oliver spotted Mr. Harris standing alone near the entrance, looking apprehensive. This time, Oliver took a bold step forward. "You don't need to bring anyone with you," he encouraged. "Just come as you are. Mr. Thompson will appreciate it more if you don't have those bodyguards with you." Mr. Harris hesitated, glancing back at the imposing figures standing watch. But Oliver's earnestness sparked a flicker of resolve within him. "You're right," he said, nodding slowly. "I'll come back tomorrow, just me." The following day, Oliver felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as he awaited the meeting. He positioned himself under his oak tree, watching the entrance to the park with bated breath. Would Mr. Harris follow through with his promise? Would he take the leap and approach his father without the intimidation of his bodyguards? Moments felt like hours as Oliver scanned the park for any sign of Mr. Harris. Finally, he saw the man approaching, his demeanor more relaxed than before. Oliver's heart soared at the sight. Mr. Harris walked with a newfound confidence, determination evident in his stride. As he neared the bench, Oliver could see Mr. Thompson sitting there, his loyal dog by his side, unaware of the impending reunion. Oliver held his breath, knowing that he had set the stage for a moment that could change everything. This was not just about apples and kindness, it was about mending broken ties and healing old wounds. Oliver watched intently as Mr. Harris took a deep breath, preparing to reach out to the father he had longed to reconnect with. The weight of their shared history hung in the air, ready to be confronted at last. As Oliver observed the scene unfold before him, the atmosphere in the park thickened with tension and anticipation. Mr. Harris stood at a distance, glancing toward his father, who sat on the bench with Buddy resting beside him. It was a moment charged with emotion, and Oliver felt the weight of history pressing down on them all. With determination, Mr. Harris took a step forward, and Oliver held his breath. Would he be able to reach out to Mr. Thompson? As Mr. Harris approached, he hesitated for a moment, his expression wavering between hope and fear. Oliver could sense that this was the culmination of their unspoken conflict, a chance for reconciliation that had been years in the making. "Dad?" Mr. Harris's voice was tentative, almost a whisper. The word hung in the air, laden with years of regret and longing. Oliver watched closely, heart racing as he felt the gravity of the moment. Mr. Thompson looked up, surprise flickering across his weathered face, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. Mr. Thompson squinted, his brow furrowing as he processed the sight of his son standing before him. Mark? The name escaped his lips like a prayer, a mixture of disbelief and hope. Oliver could see the hesitation in Mr. Thompson's eyes. He was wary but intrigued, the decades of silence between them echoing loudly in the park. It's me, Mr. Harris continued, his voice gaining strength. I've come to talk, to explain. There was an earnestness in his tone, a vulnerability that Oliver had never heard before. It was as if the man standing before Mr. Thompson had shed the layers of arrogance and bravado, revealing a son desperately seeking connection. As Mr. Harris began to share his thoughts, Oliver felt a swell of emotions within him. He sensed the tension begin to dissolve as Mr. Harris expressed his regrets about the years lost, about the estrangement that had driven them apart. I've thought about you every day, Dad, he admitted, his voice cracking slightly. I want to make things right. Oliver's heart swelled with hope as he listened to the words that poured from Mr. Harris. The emotions were raw and real, washing over the space between father and son. Mr. Thompson remained silent, his eyes locked on Mr. Harris as if searching for the truth behind the words. It was a moment that felt sacred, filled with the potential for healing. Can you forgive me? Mr. Harris asked, vulnerability etched on his face. I know I've hurt you, but I want to try again. I want to be a part of your life. Oliver felt a lump in his throat, wishing he could offer his encouragement, but he remained in the background, a witness to this poignant reunion. Mr. Thompson took a deep breath, the weight of the moment palpable. Oliver could see the myriad of emotions flickering across the old man's face, anger, sorrow, but also a glimmer of hope. It was a reflection of the years they had both endured, the burdens they carried, and the love that had been overshadowed by pain. After what felt like an eternity, Mr. Thompson spoke, his voice steady but soft. You don't know what it's been like for me, Mark. I've missed you. The words hung in the air, laden with emotion. Oliver felt tears prick at his eyes, the sincerity of the moment overwhelming. He had witnessed many stories in his books, but none felt as real and transformative as this. The bond between father and son was fragile, yet Oliver could sense the shift as they faced each other. Mr. Harris took a tentative step closer, and in that moment, something shifted in the air, a tangible connection that had been absent for far too long. Oliver felt his heart race as he watched, knowing that they were standing on the precipice of something profound. Let's start over, Mr. Harris said, extending a hand, his voice breaking slightly. Please, just give me a chance. The gesture was simple yet powerful, an invitation to bridge the chasm that had divided them for years. Mr. Thompson looked at his son's outstretched hand, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The old man hesitated, grappling with the weight of their past and the possibility of a shared future. Oliver held his breath, aware that the next moment could change everything. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mr. Thompson reached out, placing his weathered hand in Mr. Harris's. It was a tentative connection, but in that simple gesture, the years of separation began to melt away. Oliver felt a rush of emotion as he watched the two men, each carrying their scars, begin to forge a path toward healing. Tears welled in Mr. Harris's eyes as he grasped his father's hand firmly, a promise of a new beginning. I'm here now, Dad. I won't let you down again. The sincerity in his voice resonated deeply, echoing the longing for connection that had existed for far too long. As they embraced, Oliver felt a surge of joy and relief. This moment was not just about reconciliation, it was a testament to the resilience of love, the power of forgiveness, and the possibility of starting anew. He realized that he had played a part in this transformation, and the weight of that realization filled him with a sense of purpose. Watching the reunion unfold, Oliver felt as though he were witnessing a miracle. The bond between Mr. Thompson and Mr. Harris was fragile but beautiful, a testament to the strength of family ties that could withstand the test of time. In the midst of their embrace, Oliver understood that even the smallest acts of kindness could lead to profound changes, reshaping the narrative of their lives. The park, once a place of solitude, now held the promise of healing and new beginnings, filled with hope for the future. In the aftermath of the emotional reunion, the atmosphere in the park shifted dramatically. Oliver watched as Mr. Thompson and Mr. Harris embraced, their years of silence giving way to a flood of emotions. It was as if the world around them faded away, leaving only the two men wrapped in a moment of shared understanding. Oliver felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of fulfillment as he witnessed the healing power of connection. Once they pulled away from their embrace, Mr. Thompson's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I thought I'd lost you forever," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Mr. Harris nodded, a mixture of regret and hope etched across his face. "I'm sorry for everything, Dad. I've made mistakes, but I want to make it right." The sincerity in Mr. Harris's voice resonated deeply with Oliver. He felt a swell of admiration for the courage it took for both men to confront their pasts. The weight of their shared history hung heavy, yet there was also a sense of lightness that emerged from their willingness to forgive. As they began to talk more freely, Oliver slipped away from his spot under the oak tree, feeling that he should give them some space. He wandered through the park, taking in the sights and sounds around him. The laughter of children playing, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the chirping of birds all felt brighter now. It was as if the entire park was celebrating this moment of reconciliation. After some time, Oliver returned to find Mr. Thompson and Mr. Harris sitting on the bench together, their demeanor more relaxed. Buddy lay at their feet, watching the exchange with loyal eyes. The tension that had once enveloped them had dissipated, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. Oliver smiled at the sight. It warmed his heart to see them together, sharing stories and laughter. "I didn't know you liked to fish," Mr. Harris was saying, a genuine smile on his face as he reminisced. "I remember the last time we went. You caught that big one, and we couldn't stop laughing." Mr. Thompson chuckled, shaking his head. "That was years ago. I've missed those days." The memories seemed to bridge the gap of lost time, stitching together the frayed edges of their relationship. Seeing the connection grow, Oliver felt a profound sense of satisfaction. He recognized that his small acts of kindness had contributed to this moment, a realization that filled him with purpose. He understood that sometimes, it took a little courage to facilitate healing in others, and he was grateful to have played a part. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the park, Mr. Harris looked at Oliver and said, "Thank you, young man. I don't think we would have gotten here without you." Oliver felt a blush creep across his cheeks, overwhelmed by the gratitude in Mr. Harris's voice. "I just wanted to help," he replied shyly, but deep down, he knew this moment was far greater than his initial intentions. "Your kindness has made a difference," Mr. Thompson added, his voice warm and full of appreciation. "You've shown me that it's never too late to reconnect." Oliver beamed at the praise, feeling proud yet humble. The three of them sat together on the bench, Buddy resting comfortably at their feet. Oliver felt a sense of belonging that he had longed for, surrounded by the warmth of family and the spirit of forgiveness. In that moment, he realized that he was not only witnessing a reunion but also participating in a new beginning for both Mr. Thompson and Mr. Harris. Days turned into weeks as Mr. Harris returned to the park regularly. With Oliver's encouragement, he came without his bodyguards, seeking to build trust with his father. Each visit felt like a step toward healing. They would share stories, reminisce about the past, and even find joy in the present. Their laughter echoed through the park, a reminder that the bond between them was being rebuilt. Oliver continued to bring apples for Mr. Thompson, and in return, he learned more about Mr. Harris and his life. He discovered the challenges his father had faced, the choices that had led to their separation, and the longing for connection that had always been there. Their conversations expanded Oliver's understanding of family dynamics, teaching him the complexities of love and forgiveness. One afternoon, Mr. Harris surprised them both with a picnic in the park, complete with sandwiches, fruits, and, of course, apples. Oliver was thrilled, and the three of them settled on a blanket under the shade of the oak tree. As they shared their meal, laughter filled the air, and the atmosphere was light and joyful. It was a stark contrast to the tension that had once hung heavily over them. As they ate, Mr. Thompson shared stories from his youth, and Oliver listened intently, captivated by the tales of adventure and mischief. It was a bonding experience that enriched their relationship, and even Mr. Harris added his own anecdotes, weaving their lives together through shared laughter. The more time they spent together, the more Oliver felt like a part of their newfound family. He had become not just a witness to their reconciliation but an integral part of it. Each day brought a new sense of hope, reminding him that small gestures of kindness could indeed lead to profound changes in the lives of others. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the park, Oliver reflected on the journey they had all taken. The power of connection had transformed not only Mr. Thompson and Mr. Harris but also himself. He felt empowered, knowing that he could help bridge the gap between people, healing old wounds and nurturing relationships. In this journey of reconciliation, Oliver learned that the path to forgiveness was not always easy, but it was worth every step. The love shared between a father and son, the loyalty of a dog, and the kindness of a young boy had created a beautiful tapestry of new beginnings, and as he looked at Mr. Thompson and Mr. Harris, he knew that their story was just beginning. As the days turned into weeks, the park became a place of healing and joy for Mr. Thompson, Mr. Harris, and Oliver. The bond between father and son deepened with each passing visit, as they continued to share stories and laughter under the sprawling oak tree. It was a transformation that had once seemed impossible, but now felt like a beautiful reality. One sunny afternoon, Oliver arrived at the park to find Mr. Harris and Mr. Thompson sitting on their usual bench, Buddy nestled comfortably at their feet. The air was filled with a sense of warmth and camaraderie. Oliver felt a surge of happiness as he approached, eager to join their gathering. "Hey, guys! What's the plan for today?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Mr. Harris smiled broadly, a lightness in his demeanor that had not been there before. "We were just discussing our plans to go fishing this weekend," he said, glancing at his father for approval. Mr. Thompson nodded, a smile breaking across his face. "I haven't been fishing in years. It'll be good to relive those moments," he replied, his voice laced with anticipation. Oliver's heart soared at the thought of them rekindling old traditions. "Can I come?" he asked, his enthusiasm bubbling over. The two men exchanged glances, and Mr. Harris grinned. "Of course! The more, the merrier." Oliver beamed at the invitation, thrilled at the prospect of being part of this new chapter in their lives. As the weekend approached, the excitement in the park grew palpable. Oliver prepared eagerly, envisioning the fishing rods, the laughter, and the shared moments that would solidify their bond even further. He picked out a special fishing hat to wear and packed a small bag with snacks for the trip, determined to make the day unforgettable. On the day of the outing, Oliver arrived early, brimming with energy. Mr. Thompson and Mr. Harris soon followed, each carrying fishing gear and a sense of enthusiasm that mirrored Oliver's own. The trio set off toward the nearby lake, Buddy trotting happily alongside them. It was a picturesque day, the sun shining brightly in a clear blue sky, and Oliver felt a sense of contentment envelop him. As they reached the lake, Oliver watched as Mr. Thompson and Mr. Harris set up their fishing rods, their movements fluid and practiced. It was evident that they were reconnecting with not only each other but also with the simple joys of life. Oliver felt a swell of pride to be part of this experience, a witness to the healing power of family. Once the lines were cast into the water, they settled onto a grassy patch by the lake, ready to enjoy the day ahead. The conversations flowed easily, filled with stories from the past and dreams for the future. Oliver listened intently, soaking in the wisdom shared between the two men, realizing how much their bond had grown. After a while, Mr. Harris pulled in the first catch of the day, a small but lively fish that sparked cheers of excitement. Oliver clapped his hands, thrilled by the success. Mr. Thompson chuckled, his laughter ringing like music in the air. "Looks like you've still got it, son," he exclaimed, pride evident in his voice. This moment felt like a culmination of their journey, a celebration of the bond they were rebuilding. As they continued fishing, Oliver felt a deep sense of belonging. He was not just a bystander, he was an integral part of their story. Watching Mr. Harris and Mr. Thompson share this experience, Oliver understood the importance of forgiveness and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Their laughter echoed across the lake, a joyful sound that solidified their connection. Later, as they sat on the shore enjoying a picnic, Mr. Thompson looked at Oliver, gratitude shining in his eyes. "You brought us back together, Oliver. I can't thank you enough," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Oliver felt a rush of warmth at the acknowledgement, realizing that his small acts of kindness had created ripples of change in their lives. In that moment, he reflected on how far they had come. The struggles that had once defined their relationships were now being replaced with understanding and compassion. Oliver understood that it was the little things, a shared apple, a simple conversation, that could spark significant transformations. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, the three of them sat together, feeling the warmth of the day wrap around them. Buddy rested his head on Oliver's lap, content and peaceful. In this serene setting, they shared hopes and dreams, discussing future fishing trips, family gatherings, and even the possibility of taking Buddy on new adventures. "I want to make sure we do this more often," Mr. Harris said, looking at both Oliver and Mr. Thompson. "Family means everything, and I don't want to lose that again." Mr. Thompson nodded in agreement, his eyes reflecting the depth of their renewed relationship. "Let's keep this going. It's time to create new memories together." Oliver felt a sense of joy swell within him, knowing that they had forged a new path forward. He realized that true family is built not just on blood but on love, understanding, and shared experiences. In that moment, he felt an overwhelming sense of belonging, knowing he had played a vital role in their journey toward healing. As they packed up and prepared to leave, the three of them shared laughter and light-hearted banter, their bond stronger than ever. Oliver walked beside Mr. Thompson and Mr. Harris, his heart full. He had not only witnessed a reconciliation but had become a catalyst for change, a reminder that kindness could create a ripple effect that transformed lives. In the days that followed, the park remained a sacred space for them. They continued to gather regularly, sharing in each other's lives, and Oliver found a family where he had once felt lost. The story of Mr. Thompson and Mr. Harris became one of hope and redemption, a testament to the power of forgiveness and the importance of connection. As they moved forward, Oliver understood that every new day was an opportunity to cherish the relationships he had cultivated. Their journey together was just beginning, filled with the promise of new memories, love, and adventure. And in the heart of it all, he knew that kindness could indeed change the world, one small act at a time. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.